Cristiano Ronaldo adjusted the cuff of his suit as he stepped into the grand lobby of one of London's most prestigious hotels. The atmosphere was calm, luxurious, exactly what was needed before a Champions League match. His teammates gathered around, chatting, laughing, mentally preparing for the battle ahead. The air smelled of fresh coffee and polished marble, the quiet hum of morning activity filling the space. But suddenly, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A man, dishevelled and desperate, pushed against the security guards who formed a tight wall between him and the team. His voice cut through the stillness. "Cristiano, help me!" The shout sent a ripple through the lobby. Some players turned, a few whispering, others ignoring the disruption. Ronaldo's gaze instinctively followed the sound, locking onto the figure being dragged away. The man's clothes were torn, his face marked by exhaustion and suffering. He struggled against the grip of the guards, his voice breaking. "Please, just 1 minute, just one." His words vanished into the cold air as security shoved him out the door, returning to their posts as if nothing had happened. Ronaldo clenched his jaw. His heart beat just a little faster. There was something about the way the man had called his name. It wasn't just a plea, it was desperation, as if Ronaldo was his last hope, but the team had rules. No distractions, no outside contact before a match. His job was to focus. So he turned away, forcing himself to push the moment from his mind. As the team boarded the bus, the city blurred past the tinted windows, but Ronaldo wasn't seeing the streets of London. He was seeing the man's face, hearing that voice over and over. He knew the weight of struggle, the silence of being unheard. Growing up in Madeira, survival was a daily battle. Meals were never guaranteed, and every coin was stretched to its limit. He had escaped that life, but not everyone did. And some people, they just needed a hand before the world swallowed them whole. By the time they arrived at the stadium, the incident should have faded. The locker room buzzed with energy, tactics discussed, adrenaline rising, the sound of studs clicking against the floor as players prepared. But that voice still echoed in Ronaldo's mind. He shook it off. The match was what mattered now. He was here to win. The roar of the stadium was deafening. Thousands of fans filled the air with chants, their voices merging into an electrifying hum that pulsed through the night. The Champions League anthem played, the moment every player lived for. Ronaldo stood in formation, his gaze locked forward, his breathing steady. This was familiar territory, the battlefield where he had built his legacy. And yet, buried beneath the adrenaline, a shadow lingered, that voice from the morning. "Cristiano, help me!" The whistle blew, and the world faded into motion. From the first touch, Ronaldo was relentless. His passes were precise, his footwork sharp, his mind calculating every move before it happened. The opposing team pushed back hard, but Ronaldo had fire in his veins. A perfectly timed through ball sent him sprinting past defenders, the goalkeeper rushing out arms wide. The moment slowed, the weight of expectation pressing down. He took the shot. The net rippled. The stadium exploded. He barely registered the celebrations, his teammates swarming him, their hands patting his back, their voices ringing with victory. He had done what he always did, delivered when it mattered. But as he jogged back to midfield, something felt off. The usual thrill wasn't there. His mind wasn't replaying the goal. It was stuck on something else entirely. The final whistle blew, a 3-1 victory. Another night, another triumph. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust in his face, reporters shouting his name. He answered questions mechanically, offering the usual lines about teamwork and dedication. But the moment the interviews ended, his focus shifted. The team headed for the tunnel, but Ronaldo hesitated. He had a flight back to Madrid with the rest of them. He had post-match obligations, recovery sessions, schedules to follow, but at that moment none of it mattered. He turned to one of the club staff members. "I need to stay in London tonight." The man looked puzzled. "Alone?" "The team leaves in 2 hours." Ronaldo didn't waver. "I'll make my own arrangements." He walked away, leaving behind the noise of the stadium, the weight of expectations. He had won the match, but there was something unfinished, and he wouldn't be able to rest until he found the man from that morning. The team bus was waiting, engines humming, ready to take the players back to the airport. Inside, laughter and celebration filled the air. Another victory, another step closer to glory. But Ronaldo wasn't on that bus. He stood outside the stadium, his hoodie pulled low, his breath misting in the cold London air. He didn't know the man's name. He had no address. No leads. Only a memory of a desperate voice and a glimpse of tattered clothes before security dragged him away. But that was enough. He wasn't leaving until he found him. Pulling out his phone, he made a call. He had connections in England, people who could help. Within minutes, a local contact responded. "Homeless man near your hotel this morning? Could be anywhere, but there's a shelter 2 blocks from there. If he's still in the area, they might know something." Ronaldo didn't hesitate. He hailed a car, weaving through London's streets, his heart pounding harder than it had during the match. When they arrived, the shelter was dimly lit, a modest brick building with a worn-out sign. Inside, volunteers moved between cots and chairs, handing out blankets and bowls of soup. The air smelled of damp clothes and exhaustion. He approached the front desk. "A man was outside my hotel this morning. He called my name. I need to find him." The receptionist, an older woman with tired eyes, studied him for a moment. Recognition flashed across her face. After all, Cristiano Ronaldo was hard to miss. But she didn't ask questions. Instead, she sighed. A lot of people come through here. Some stay, some disappear. She thought for a moment. But if he was that desperate, he might have gone to the underpass a few streets away. Some of them sleep there when the shelters are full. Ronaldo thanked her and left. The underpass wasn't far, but as he approached, the sight made his stomach tighten. Cardboard boxes served as makeshift beds, scattered belongings piled into corners. The streetlights barely reached the figures curled under thin blankets, their faces turned away from the world. He scanned the area, his pulse quickening. Then he saw him. Hunched against a concrete wall, the same black jacket, the same hollow eyes. Ronaldo took a slow breath and stepped forward. "Hey, my friend," he said, his voice steady but gentle. The man flinched, looking up as if expecting trouble, but then his eyes widened in disbelief. No way." His voice cracked. You came?" Ronaldo nodded. "I should have come sooner." The man's lip trembled. For a moment he just stared, as if waiting to wake up from a cruel dream. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "Why?" Ronaldo crouched down, meeting him at eye level. "Because you asked me for help. Now tell me your story." The man swallowed hard, his fingers tightening around the frayed edges of his jacket. For the first time in a long time, someone was looking at him. Not through him, not past him, but at him. He exhaled shakily, his voice raw. "My name's Tom," he began. "I wasn't always like this." He paused, staring at the ground as if searching for pieces of a life long gone. "I had a job, a family, a little girl." His voice broke slightly, but he forced himself to continue. "Then everything fell apart. My wife got sick. Cancer. We sold everything for treatments, but it wasn't enough. She passed away and I lost myself." Ronaldo listened in silence, the cold wind brushing against them. He had heard stories of struggle before, but hearing it like this, sitting on the cold pavement, face to face with a man who had lost everything, made it real in a way he couldn't ignore. Tom took a shaky breath. "I lost my job. Depression took over. One bad decision led to another, and soon I had nothing. No home, no hope. My daughter, she lives with my sister now. Haven't seen her in 2 years." His voice wavered. "I just wanted to get back on my feet. I wasn't asking for a miracle, just a chance." His gaze lifted, filled with quiet despair. "That's why I called your name today, because if there was anyone who knew what it meant to fight back from nothing, it was you." Ronaldo's chest tightened. He knew what it was like to come from struggle, to fight against odds stacked high. But Tom's battle wasn't on a football pitch. It was in the streets, against a world that had given up on him. Ronaldo reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. But before he could hand over anything, Tom shook his head. "I don't want your money," Ronaldo frowned. "Then what do you need?" Tom hesitated, his lips pressing together before he whispered, "A job. A way to be someone again. A chance to see my daughter without shame in her eyes." Something shifted in Ronaldo at that moment. He had met countless people, signed endless autographs, and given to charity regularly. But this was different. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "I have a friend who owns a restaurant here in London," he said as the call connected. "They need staff. You start tomorrow." Tom blinked, stunned. You mean it?" Ronaldo nodded. "But you have to promise me something." Tom sat straighter. "Anything. You fight for this. You don't give up." A tear slipped down Tom's cheek, but this time it wasn't just sadness, it was hope. He extended his trembling hand. Ronaldo took it firmly. For the first time in years, Tom had something more valuable than money. He had a future. The next morning, as the sun painted London's skyline in soft gold, Tom stood outside the restaurant Ronaldo had arranged for him. His clothes were still worn, his hands still rough from years of hardship, but something in his posture had changed. He stood taller, with purpose. Inside, the manager greeted him, already briefed on the situation. No special treatment, no pity, just an opportunity. "You start in the kitchen," the manager said. "It won't be easy, but if you work hard, you'll earn your place here." Tom nodded, his throat tight. He wasn't here for handouts. He was here to rebuild. Meanwhile, Ronaldo sat in the back of his car watching from a distance. His flight was in a few hours and soon he'd return to the world of trophies and stadium lights. But at this moment, none of that mattered. His phone buzzed. A message from his friend, the restaurant owner. "Just spoke to Tom. He wanted me to tell you. He just called his sister. His daughter wants to see him again. First time in years. He said he doesn't have the words to thank you." Ronaldo exhaled, a slow smile forming. He had won countless matches in his life, but this felt like one of his greatest victories. As the car pulled away, Tom stepped through the restaurant doors, stepping not just into a job, but into a second chance at life.